Hello and welcome back to the Little Craft House. Today we're going to be jumping straight in with our colour mixing tutorial. So I'm going to be taking packet colours of polymer clay, mixing them together to create a new colour palette. Along the way I will record these recipes so that you can write them down and recreate them for yourself. I decided to skip my usual introduction that I would do because I don't want this tutorial to turn out too long. I'm going to do this tutorial in two parts, all together in this one video, but I'm going to split it up into two halves. So the first part of the tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to mix this beautiful neutral colour palette, and the second half we're going to be adding a granite effect to make them really stone-like and give them a really interesting texture. So what's happening on your screen at the moment is I am preparing to portion out the polymer clay so that we can make our recipes and have them consistent. All of the polymer clays we are using today belong to the Sculpey Souffle family. Now, if you didn't happen to have these colours on hand, you can substitute them for other colours within other brands, but just keep in mind that your end colours may turn out slightly different to mine. So the colours that I'm using today is the latte, which is the one at the top. I've got cinnamon, I've got cornflower, canary, and igloo, which is the white one. I also have the black poppy seed here, but I actually don't end up using that. So I've just thrown him to the side because I've realised that I didn't actually need him. So I've slightly conditioned up these clays. I haven't gone too overboard with the conditioning because during the mixing process, it's definitely going to condition up then. But I've put them all through the pasta machine at the thickest setting. And I'm using a shape cutter now just to cut each of the portions. So I'm just going to cut out a whole bunch of each colour and then we can get mixing. So I am using a circle cutter, which is a good one to use because we will be doing half portions in today's recipes. So a circle is easy to portion in half. Otherwise, a square or another symmetrical shape would work well as well. If you've seen my colour mixing recipes before, you'll know that I'm just going to mix up a base recipe today. So you can, of course, multiply it out to make more clay if you require a larger portion of it. This will just be the base recipe, but you can always times it out 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever times more if you need more clay for your projects. You might also be wondering why I am doing colour mixing when Sculpey in particular has a huge range of colours available to purchase. Well, I am trying to limit my clays that I do purchase. So I'm trying to use up clays in my stash to create some new colours, and these colours are going to be different, of course, to what other people will have. So it will definitely set a point of difference with some of my creations. It's also a really good talking point and way to interact with customers, telling them about how I've mixed the colours for those creations myself as well. Now I've got them all cut out and ready to go, we can start our colour mixing recipes. So I had spread these colours out so that I could just get that last shot. So now I need to just move them to the side, get them all out the way, and then we can start actually mixing them up. So the first recipe that we're going to do is just really simple. It's 1 portion of cinnamon mixed in with 1 portion of white. And I am just going to double the recipe and do 2 and 2 just because the 1 and 1 won't give me enough clay. So if you're new to polymer clay colour mixing, there are a few different ways that you can mix your clays together. I tend to use a combination of all 3 ways. So throughout this tutorial, you'll see me using all the different methods. Here I'm just using the acrylic roller and just folding and rolling and folding and rolling. Always make sure that you keep your seam line to the side, and then that way it will help to push any air bubbles out and they won't get trapped in the clay. Another way of mixing is using the pasta machine. This comes in really handy when you are doing large quantities because you can thin it out as you go and it stretches the clay and just seems to mix the colour a little bit quicker. I quite often get asked about my pasta machine. This one I got for Christmas, but it was purchased from just a local kitchen shop. Now, I'm pretty sure you pronounce it Baccarat Gourmet. Yeah, it's a really good little pasta machine. It is a little bit clunky, but I've had a few different pasta machines and they all seem to be a little bit clunky, but I really like it and I really like the matte black look of it as well. Back in January of this year, I did a craft room restock, and as part of that, I suppose it's a tutorial, I featured an unboxing of the pasta machine. So if you're interested, go back and check that out, and that gives you all the details. Okay, so back with our colour mixing, I have my little colour mix cards here, which I created. I do have a back section for the sample, but I've gone to putting the samples just on the front. I've made these up and got them printed through Vistaprint, but you can easily just use old business cards or a piece of paper or something else. But it's a great way just to record them and keep them all handy so I can recreate in future if I need. So I just cut myself a little sample there, kind of doing it back to front. I usually write the recipe and then add the sample. I don't know why I did it back to front this time, but adding the sample onto the top of my card, and then I'm just going to write the recipe down. So this one was 1 portion of cinnamon, and I'm just going to put a little S up in the corner to symbolise that it is souffle. And then I've got 1 of the white. Now, I don't tend to specify with my whites because both Igloo and Primo white are very similar, so it doesn't really matter which one I use. Okay, next up, it's another really simple recipe. It's 2 portions of white with 1 portion of latte. So as I was rolling this, I realised it's probably not going to be enough of a portion for me to be able to use. So I do just double the recipe by adding some more in. And we've ended up with this beautiful neutral colour, which is just going to be so versatile and so useful for lots of different things. So I'll just write the recipe down for this one. So we had 2 portions of white and 1 portion of latte. Oop, my camera doesn't want to focus. Come on, focus. For our next colour, we are going to use 5 portions of white. We only need 1 portion of the cinnamon. And then with latte, we're going to go 2.5. So I'm just going to cut my portion here in half. I'll pop that bit to the side because I'll use that afterwards for another recipe. And then I'm just going to give it a bit of a scrunch to get it all together. And then give it a bit of a roll. So one of the things I like when I'm mixing up multiple colours like this one is you tend to get a really nice blend happening through the clay. So sometimes when I'm just playing around and mixing colours, I'll actually stop mid-mix and just use the clay as is, because sometimes it puts through a really nice swirl of colours. And like this one, you can kind of see it's starting to happen where it's got some really nice neutral tones through it. So I could use portions of this just as it is without actually continuing to mix it into that new colour. Right, so this one turns out to be quite a nice neutral as well, and I thought I'd just do a comparison of the other two that we've already worked on, just so you can sort of see the colour variances there. But those three would work really nicely together in the same project, as well as if I just used the latte or the cinnamon by themselves with it as well. Yeah, just be nice to use those combinations. Okay, so recording down the recipe, so it was 5 white, 2.5 of latte, and 1 of cinnamon. And then I'll just do the little sampler to put on the top. So something that I like to do is with that sampler, I've pushed it onto the card there so it stays quite nicely. I will bake these cards as is with it sitting on top. I just chuck the whole thing into the oven and bake it up, and then I'll just pull each of the pieces off and glue them on so that I don't confuse myself to which colour belongs with which card. And they're totally fine to go in the oven. The cards, they can withstand the heat. That's not a problem. Yeah, it just makes it a little bit easier and I don't get confused. All right, anyway, on with the next colour. So this one mixes up 2 cinnamon, half a canary yellow, half a white, and half a latte. Okay, so I've just edited this one down a little bit, and we've got that beautiful light cinnamon colour. So it's a little bit more of a terracotta, I would say, actually. Again, very nice colour, and it'll go with those other colours that we've mixed up beautifully. Okay, so just writing the recipe down. So it was 2 cinnamon, half a canary yellow, half a white, and half a latte. Okay, next up, I wasn't sure how this one would go, but just trust the process. It actually works out fine. We've got 2 cinnamon, 1 cornflower blue, and 1 of the white. I'll just give the table a bit of my tile a bit of a wipe. Had a bit of colour transfer happening, so we'll just wipe that down, keep it nice and clean. Yeah, usually I like to clean between mixes. If the colours are quite strong, you'll quite often get colour left behind. And we'll just move it over to the pasta machine and get it going through there as well. So I don't know if I mentioned before, I usually start on the thicker settings through the pasta machine, and if I need to, I'll work them down to a thinner level, and then that way it just kind of stretches the clay and blends a lot quicker. So the colour for this one is looking a little darker on screen than what it is in real life. It's a bit of a dusty mauve colour. Yeah, I quite like this one, and I possibly might need to try it again with maybe a little bit more white, just to lighten it up a little bit, or maybe half a cornflower. But I'll save that experimenting for another day. Okay, so there's our recipe. We've got the 2 cinnamon, the 1 cornflower, and the 1 white. All right, still sticking with our blue corn flour. We are going to mix 1 cornflower with 2 white and half a latte. And for this one, just for a bit of fun, I decided that I was just going to try and mix it all just by hand. So I'm just doing a bit of squeezing, a bit of rolling, making it into a long snake, a bit of twisting. If you're wanting to marble your colours, it's actually a really good way. You'll see as I roll it out, it marbles the colours quite nicely, and like I was talking about before, it makes me very tempted to stop mixing halfway through. It looks like it's got a little face in it. Can you see that little smile there? For some reason, I just decided to have fun and gave him some eyes and a nose just for the fun of it. There we go, zoom in. Ha ha, looking at us laughing. Yeah, let's squish him up. Let's just keep going. Oops, and I've forgotten to pull the camera back. Oh, look at that beautiful marble effect that's happening there. Oh, I just folded it up. But it was looking good. All right, that's not the point of today. Today is not about marbling. Today is about creating beautiful colours like this one. It's a beautiful powdery blue. Much nicer than just having that little face there. Although I will admit, I have been tempted, and I've actually followed through, to bake up pieces like I just had then as just a chunk, and I've made them into pendants and things. They've actually looked quite all right, even though they were literally just a mix of colours halfway through a process, but I've used them and they've looked good, and nobody needs to know that that wasn't their intended use. All right, anyway, there's the recipe. Half a latte, 2 white and 1 corn flour. Rightio, we've come to the last recipe, and this one is my favourite. You guys know what my favourite colour to mix is, and that of course is a sage green. I love my sage greens. So this one was 1 corn flour, half a yellow, 1.5 white and half a latte, and we're just going to give this one a nice little mix up. I have so many variations of sage. I've possibly done this one before. I can't quite remember, but I just love sage clays. I know Sculpey has released some recently. I like my version slightly better. I find some of their colours are a little bit more washed out. This one is nice though, and again, like the colour I had before, I possibly could go a little bit lighter with it because we're going to be doing that granite effect. But look how beautiful this colour has turned out. Really nice, and yeah, I'm very happy with it. Okay, so let's just write down the recipe. So we've got 1 corn flour blue. We've got half a canary yellow. It's 1.5 white. And half a latte. Right, so here is our collection of colours that we have produced so far. They are all absolutely beautiful, and I'm going to be using these in a project that I will be posting probably the week before you are seeing this. So you may need to go over onto my channel and have a look for my creations that I make using these colours. Now, as promised, we are going to add the granite effect to each one of these clays. So what I'm going to do is cut each of them in half, and then we will head on to our second half of this tutorial, our part 2, which will continue in just a moment. So before we continue on and add in our granite to make our clays have that granite look effect, I thought I would share with you guys a little bit of an experiment that I did using different mediums to create that granite look effect. So firstly is the Primo Granite polymer clay. So that's what I'm going to be using later in the tutorial. So that's got lots of granite throughout it, so it's quite a strong granite look. So I've pre-cut 2 portions here, so I'm going to do 2 portions with my 1 portion white to see how that turns out. I've also got some glitter. So this one is probably more of, it is labelled as a black glitter, but it's actually more of a really dark grey, silvery style glitter. So we're going to add that to one of our portions and have a look and see how that turns out. I've also got some foil. So like gold leaf foil, this one is a black foil. Now the good thing about foil is that you can get it in lots of colours, so you could make this effect with other colours too, so say pinks or blues or greens or reds or lots of different colours. So the possibility with the foil and the glitter for that matter are actually pretty endless. You can put different coloured granite effects through. And then lastly, we're going to use some pepper. So black peppercorns. So this is one that I have done before and a lot of people talk about doing. So I thought I'd include the pepper to compare how it turns out. Right, so straight up with the mixing of this one, I'm just going to quickly do it with the rolling pin, with the acrylic roller, and we're just going to mix it in. So Sculpey did release their own version of a white granite a little while ago, which was cool, but I've always preferred to mix my own because I like to be able to control the amount of granite that is in my clay. So you can see pretty much straight away how the granite is affecting the clay and how it is making it nice and gritty looking. Now I'm just going to be sharing the 4 ways today, but there are of course many other ways that you can add a granite look into your clay as well. And just quickly off the top of my head, you could add mica powders, you could add sand, or you could even add some grated up cured clay, and that would also give you that granity look. Okay, next up I'm going to go with the foil. So you can see how thin and delicate this is. So I am just I didn't really want to pull the whole lot out. I'm being really careful and I'm not sure exactly how much of it I'm going to need. So we're just going to start with a little bit at the beginning, give it a bit of a roll, and you can see that gorgeous crackle effect happening. So if you wanted a really strong look, you could definitely just use it like that. Otherwise you can do like we're going to do here, and we're going to mix it all in together and try and get more of a consistent look throughout the clay and have it within the clay as well. So I am just doing this little bits at a time just so that I can sort of control how much is there. It also makes it a little bit easier because once you've put the foil on like that, it's quite slippery on the outside and I don't want to oversaturate the clay to start with it. So I'm just going to slowly add it until I'm happy with the amount that's within. The thing that I do like about the foil is that it keeps the white clay white still. So with that grey granite, it kind of turned the clay a little bit grey, whereas this is keeping it nice and white. Right, so the next 2 colours are going to get a little bit messy. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my baking paper here just to put down so we don't get it all over the tile, just to try and keep it a little bit cleaner. But first I'm just going to give the clay a little bit of a roll just to stretch it out a little bit, give us more surface area to work with. And I have picked up a little bit of crumbs from the other colours, but that's fine because we're mixing it all in anyway. Adding granite effect is also a really great way to hide dirt. So if you've got white clay that is slightly dirty for whatever reason, maybe it's got a bit of colour transfer on it, maybe it's scraps from something that you've used and it's got a little bit of coloured clay on it. Yeah, if it's a little bit dirty, it's great to add that granite effect because then it makes it look like it's all on purpose and you don't notice that dirtiness within. So I'm just trying to mush this together with my hands just because I don't want to get the glitter on my roller at the moment until it is quite mixed in to the clay. So this is making the clay quite soft and gooey as well because of the way that I'm smudging it in. But you can see, and I did add a little bit too much glitter, I think, but it's giving it a really good granite effect. And being glitter, it has a little bit of a sparkle to it as well. It's being dulled a little bit by the clay, but there's definitely a little bit of sparkle there. All right, and I'm just going to grab that paper back so that we can now do the pepper. So again, just going to stretch the clay out a little bit. And something else you can do as well is you don't have to be confined to just using the one medium. You could mix it up a little bit. So the pepper with the glitter would be really cool, or adding a bit of that foil in. Foil's great as well. I didn't mention before, if you've got scrap clay left over when you've used foil in a project and then you mix the clay up and you get the granite effect from those scraps. That works really well too. Now, with the pepper, it's creating that really gorgeous pepper smell as well, which is really cool. I don't know how well the smell would hold up after it's been baked and after time, but as I've just ground it freshly, it has quite a lovely smell. As long as I don't start sneezing in a moment, we're all good. But and something else that I really like about the pepper is that it's got the different colour tones there. So it had the chunky bits and the thinner bits, and there was some black bits and some grey bits and some brown bits and some creamy coloured toned bits. So yeah, I really like that about the pepper. Definitely more of a textured look with that pepper as well. All right, so there are 4 options. They all are really good. They all have a few little pros and cons there, but if you don't have grey granite on hand, which to be honest, the grey granite's probably the easiest, but if you don't have grey granite on hand, there is definitely other options for you to be able to create that granity look. Okay, so back with part 2 of our tutorial, and that's adding the granite effect to those colours, that custom colours that we just created. So I'm going to be using the Primo Grey Granite. Yeah, have a little look at this. Look how chock-a-block full of that granite effect it is. Now, when I feel it like this, it is a little bit rough. That's a downside of adding the grey granite, is that it can create a bit of drag in your clay when you cut the clay, because your knife gets caught on some of those gritty bits and will just pull it through the clay. That's something that is a little bit frustrating about using the grey granite with our clays, but we want that nice granity look. So we're just going to suck up that annoyance and get on with things. I'm just going to condition it first before we pop it through the pasta machine and cut our portions out. Now, in that little experiment I created just before, you saw how the white clay turned slightly grey by using our grey granite. So I am thinking that some of our colours may change slightly in this process, but they shouldn't change anything too drastically because the white didn't change too badly. It was just a little bit. So our colours may go just a little bit darker. Now, also, another thing to note with adding this grey granite is we are just going to play it by ear as such. We're just going to cut out a bunch of the granite and add it to the clay. No particular recipe for this because it will depend on how granity you want or how much granite effect you want through your colours. So a good base point to start with would be a singular portion, maybe even a double portion. So I'm grabbing all my colours here, and I'm going to just do a little test and see what one portion of grey will look like with the colours. I'll do the blue and we'll have a look and see what it looks like, and then work out if I need to add more. So I'm not going to write down the recipes for this because I already have the recipes for the base colour, and I'll just be adding as much grey granite as I want to get the effect that I want. So yeah, I won't be recording for this. It's very much personal preference for how much grey we're going to be adding. Let's have a look and see how much that single piece added. Okay, I definitely think this one needs some more because I want it to be really visible. If my clay was a bit lighter, possibly wouldn't need more, but I think I'll definitely add a second piece to this. Yep, I think that's definitely better. Definitely more visible. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 pieces of the grey granite to each one of the colours that we produced. Okay, so here are our results. We've got these beautiful granity coloured clays. They look amazing. Now, I must say the sage really reminds me of the Cernit granite that they do. It's not called Cernit granite, but they have a green one. Maybe it's called basalt, something like that. That's what it reminds me of, and I love it. So these colours are amazing. I'm looking forward to working with them. If all goes to plan, my tutorial using these will be on the previous week, so you'll have to skip back in and have a look at last week's tutorial if you'd like to see what I did with these colours. So here is a little comparison between the plain colour and the granite colour, and you can see that there is slight colour differences, especially in that orangey terracotta one there. It really made a huge difference with that. Anyway, these colours are all awesome. I'm adding them all to my favourites list. I'm excited to use them, and I hope that you guys are excited by them too. Please feel free to use my recipes, and would love for you to tag me if you do use them so that I can see your wonderful creations. So that brings me to the end for today. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe buttons so that you don't miss out on my future tutorials. You can also find me over on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok, and I've just set up a Buy Me a Coffee account if you're interested in showing your support over there. The links for all of these are in my YouTube bio, so don't forget to go over there and check them out. Huge thanks for joining me. Stay crafty, and I'll see you next week. Bye!